Hello friends, hi there, this is Patty Bennett. Welcome to my weekly crafting video. I am so happy you are here. You might be catching me live at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Today is Friday, September 2nd. If you're watching a replay, that is fabulous as well. So if you're joining in live, do me a favor and say hello, just so I know, like, number one, I'm in the right place, and number two, that you're here. If you're watching a replay, you are welcome to tell me that as well, because I do try to go back and watch for comments from anyone watching a replay. Alrighty, so I'm just going to scoot this up a little bit. Sorry for the shaking just for a second there. All right, so who is here? Let's see. Hey, Marcy, Kay, Wilma, Patricia. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Esther. Good to see you. Hello, Patty. Welcome, 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 everybody. I know you might be looking at this thinking, wow, that is one super eclectic collection of cards. We have apples, we have piggies, and we have flowers. But there's a reason, and we're going to get to it in just a minute. I will let everyone just have about 30 more seconds to find the live, and then we will get started. Oh, Marcy says she just had an order delivered. How fun. I bet you're going to get some stamping time in soon. Hi, Tammy. Hey, Mary, Vicky, Donna, Jane. Hello, everybody. Hi, Mary and Linda. Hey, from Manitoba, Canada. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Carol Beth and Tanya. Hello, Anne. Yes, happy Friday. I should have said that. If you're just logging on, my name is Patty Bennett. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I blog here at pattystamps.com. So starting tomorrow, September 3rd, you're going to start seeing all of these cards on different days. I decided it was just way too much to have 9 cards and all the information in one post. So you'll see the piggies, you'll see the apples, you'll see the flowers, you'll see the cards up close if you want to pin them to Pinterest, or just, take a printout or whatever you'd like to do. So just so you know, that's where you're going to find them. Welcome, Claire, Adele, Jackie, Sherry, Linda. Oh, you're so sweet. She says, love your cards. I appreciate that. All right, so we are going to start. Let me explain why this looks like such an eclectic collection of cards. It's because Stampin' Up! Currently has a promotion going on called Perfect Partners. So this is limited time only. You've probably heard about it. If you get my newsletters, my customer newsletters, you know about it. If you've checked my blog, you know about it. But, you may not have, so I'm just going to briefly go over it. Stampin' Up! Had previously released the Apple Harvest Set, Fresh Cut Flowers, Yeti, Waterfall, This Birthday Piggy, and Trimming the Tree as just stamp sets in the catalog. So, for instance, in our holiday catalog, you see this set for the Apple Harvest, but you don't see any mention of the dies. So they decided to do a release this month with the dies. So now, let's just look at that Apple Harvest. You can buy the bundle at 10% off. So if you did not previously purchase the stamp set, now you can get the set and the dies at the 10% bundle savings that Stampin' Up! Always offers. Or maybe you already had the set and you're thinking, wow, it would have been really nice not to fussy cut these. You could get just the dies. And that is true for all 6 of these bundles. Today, I'm going to give you tips for the Apple Blossom bundle, or Apple Harvest bundle, the Fresh Cut Flower bundle, and the Playful Piggy, or This Birthday Piggy bundle. You know how the names of all of these vary, and sometimes my brain gets confused. I will tell you that when I first saw this Fresh Cut Flowers stamp set in the annual catalog several months ago, I passed it by because my initial thought was, I really love this image, but that's a lot to fussy cut. So I didn't buy it at first. And then when they offered this bundle offer to demonstrators a month early, I went ahead and I did purchase the fresh cut stem dies that go with the fresh cut flowers. So I did get that bundle, and I'm really glad I did, because I think these look fabulous when they're die cut. So I'm going to show you tips for coloring these. We're actually going to make one of these cards together today. So that's that one. The Piggies, this is another one where if you look at how much cutting that would have been with paper snips, I think you can agree that this is a really great die to have. I'm going to show you how and why I did that, because it's geraniums. You're like, where's the pig? Well, we'll talk about that. Piggy in a wagon. We'll talk about that card. And then this cute little guy sniffing out for his birthday cake. So we'll look at those. And then I'm also going to show you these apple cards. Now you may be thinking, wait, I thought I saw that before. And you're right. When I showed you a watercoloring tip video, I should have looked up when it was. It was several weeks ago. I'm pretty sure it was before we went on that crafting cruise. So maybe it was in July. I can't remember for sure. But anyway, I did a whole video with watercoloring tips. And I had these apples watercolored. And I had told you that I didn't really like them. I wasn't happy with my efforts. But I just have to tell you, when I got the apple blossom dies and I used these dies that die cut them out, all of a sudden I felt like these came to life and I was actually happy with them. So I've watercolored some more, and we're going to look at those today. I'm going to give you some tips on how I watercolored these. So we have a lot to cover. I'm just going to glance really quickly here, see if I missed any questions so far. So just give me 1 second. Oh yes, Wendy says fresh cut flowers is on her list. Thanks, Holly. She said they're beautiful. Oh, thank you, Tammy. You're so sweet. You always have the kindest comments. Thank you, Lucy. Thanks for sharing, Betty. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, when people share and like and comment, that really helps both Facebook and YouTube and my blog to know that you have enjoyed this video and that I have provided some value to you. And that's really my goal, is to provide tips and value and to give you information about the products. So we will be coloring this one with the blending brushes, and I'll show you briefly how I colored this image as well. And we're going to do the background with the masks and the blending brushes. So we will do those. I'll give you the watercoloring tips on these. And first, let's look at the Piggies. So I did 4 cards with the Piggy bundle. And this was on my, wait, was this our, no, it's going to be on my blog tomorrow and Sunday. I was not sure what colors I wanted to color my Piggies. And I did this selection, Petal Pink, Papaya, and Light Pumpkin Pie. And I thought it looked great. That's what I did on these. But then after some reflection, I was like, wow, they're kind of orange-ish. But I mean, I guess pigs can't, I don't know anything about pigs. What am I thinking? I don't know. Anyway, so then I did try Flirty Flamingo, and that's a little more pink. So I like that as a suggestion. You could use either. And then you could do a combo. Like you could color it with the more orange and lighter pink tones, and then you could add some flamingo. So you can do whatever you'd like, but you know how I always tell you, do a little swatch and keep it in with your stamp set so that the next time you pull it out, pardon me, the next time you pull it out, you know what you used and you kind of have an idea of what you might want to try next time. So I always put this inside of my stamp set. So I would just open up my set and keep it in there. And then the next time that I'm ready to color, there you go. I have it for reference. So I call those a swatch card. So we'll just leave that right here. And if you want to pin that or have that for reference, it will be on my blog in the next couple days at pattystamps.com. Hi, Marilyn and Sharon. Hello, Jennifer, Betty, Sandra. Oh, thank you. So good to see you all on here. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate that you spend Fridays with me. So let's see. Let's talk about the Playful Piggy dies, and I want to point out a couple of things that I did. You've noticed there's no Piggy in this card, right? I just simply die cut the wagon and filled it with the potted geranium die cut flowers. I thought this would just be a beautiful little accent in a garden, and so that's what I did with this card. I didn't even use the pig, but I love this wagon. I love it. And here is a tip for you. One thing you might try, you can just die cut the wagon in a color. I used crumb cake cardstock. Then I took just a variety, any tan or brown or ivory Stampin' Blend marker. Actually, it probably doesn't have to be Stampin' Blend. You could use any marker or watercolor, whatever you want. And I just streaked random color on top of the crumb cake cardstock. So that way you get sort of a little more of a wood grain look and a variety of colors. Funny story. I did not even realize that there was a separate die that you could cut out the handle. So I just colored the handle with one of my darker natural tone blends. But look right there, I realized there's a separate die right there for the handle. So if you wanted to die cut it like with a metallic cardstock and have it look like metal, you could do that. The other fun thing is that there are wheels. So look at these cute little wheels that you can put on top of your wagon. I thought that was really, really fun. Really a fun touch. So you can see that same idea here with the wagon and the wheels. And then I put little gems right in the center, like, I don't know, does a wagon wheel have a hubcap? Or maybe it's just like a nut and a bolt. I don't know, whatever. Sometimes I just sort of crack myself up. Thank you, Betty. Yes, this wagon is so cute. Oh, I'm glad you loved that coloring tip. Good, good, good. So this, I'm going to shake it gently because I know it'll probably make you a little bit dizzy, but I decided just to put some shaker bits in a round cutout there with a window sheet. And I don't really know why. I just thought it was fun. And then I used from these Playful Piggy dies. You can see these cute flowers in here. So I just die cut them with some scraps and added those. And there's this little banner. Let's see, right here. Added that. And then I used this die cut to stamp the greeting. So this cute little piggy is just going for a ride. And let me show you a tip about the grass. I have to find a little scrap here. So if you have a scrap of green, any color green will do. And then I probably want to do a little bit darker. So this is Parakeet Party. This is Granny Apple Green. And what I did was I just randomly scribbled. I know, really artistic, right? And I took the grass die and I die cut several pieces of grass. And so that is what we have here. And in the background, you can see it has kind of light and dark. And then in the front layer, it's just a little bit lighter. And it gives it some depth. And I'm not going to say realistic because this is not a realistic card. But you know what I mean. Just something sort of fun. And I did the same thing with this piece here. And I actually even just cut it at a fun little squiggly angle just to give some extra dimension and depth there. So this Piggy, I just think he is the cutest. This is my favorite Piggy card by far. I think he's adorable. The die and the stamp. So this is the die, and you can see what it cuts out. So here we go. This is what it cuts out. That's the stamp. But I wanted this little piggy to be going to his birthday party with some extra balloons. And so I used this image and I stamped it 3 extra times so that I could, well, not the whole thing. I just inked like from there up. I inked 3 extra balloons. I colored them with Stampin' Blends, and I used the die to perfectly die cut those balloons, and I just tucked them there behind his happy birthday sign. I think he is just the cutest. I don't know if you guys have a favorite, but that one is just totally my favorite card out of all of these Piggy cards. What do you think? Do you like them? You like the tips? I think they're fun. I think they're really adorable. Oh, and let me just tell you, this paper, I'm just grabbing it in the catalog, is in the host selection called Celebrate Everything. It's in the holiday catalog. So when you have an order of $150 or more, you earn host benefits. So on, let's say you had a $150 order. This paper you could purchase with your $15 host credit. You just pay the extra $3 because it's $18 for the pack. But you get 48 sheets of 12 by 12 paper, and it is really just the cutest selection ever. And that's what I used on these 2 layers. And I also used it, I think, wait, this might not be. I'm trying to look at the back. What did I use on this one? No, this is from something else, and I can't think offhand what that was, but that was something else. But this one is also in that pack. So really fun selections. Oh, thank you, Cindy. Thanks, Louise. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everybody. So kind of you. Oh, thanks, Tammy. Yeah, I'm glad you like that, Jennifer, about using the markers, give it some depth. And I don't know if you saw this tip on my blog, but you can also just take a piece of white and you can color any colors of blends on there. And let's say all you needed was 1 flower that was pink, right? Look, that's all you do. You die cut right there, right where you colored, and you have a pink flower, and you don't have to cut into a piece of pink cardstock. And that's true for any color, any die, whatever. But I do that quite often. I have a few little scraps here in a desk drawer to my right, and then I just go ahead and use those for extra little die cut things. I don't take a whole sheet of paper or a quarter sheet or anything. All right, let me see if there were any questions. If I miss your question, by the way, I am going to pause at the end and have you retype questions that I may have missed. I do my best to watch for them, but just in case I missed your question. All right, so next, let's look at the apple cards. And you'll notice the really great plaids. I meant to have this out. Give me 1 second while I grab the cottage, gingham cottage. Sorry. Well, of course, it's going to be at the bottom of the stack. Yep, it was. So the gingham cottage paper is amazing. And again, it's one of those packs of 48 sheets. Look at these fabulous patterns. Love these. I just used the black and white, the green, and the red. I die cut several pieces and then I decided how to use them on these cards. And I really loved just the crisp, the graphic plaids juxtaposed against the roundness of the apples. I know you might be like, what the heck? But it just, to me, it really just pops. I love the way it sets the apples off, and I also love the way that it sets off the colors and the plaid paper. By the way, let me just one note about these samplers that I showed last week. You all went crazy for them, rightfully so. They are amazing. Samplers for all of our designer series paper. I posted a few minutes before I went live here on my business page. I posted the link. Mel is offering these again. Melanie Hawken, Mel's Inky Fingers. She is offering one last round of these because all of you went crazy over these. So after we're done, I don't want you to go away right now. Please don't leave me right now. After we're done, I just saw the numbers going down. Don't leave me. When we are done, go to my page that you're on right now and scroll back one post, and I have the link for you to reserve and purchase your DSP samplers. Okay, so she's offering them one last time. Alrighty. Oh, thank you, everybody. You are so sweet. Okay, let's look at some tips for these. I had stamped and watercolored these apple images on regular basic white cardstock with my water painter and my drops of re-inker. We've done this before. I showed you lots of other images, the pumpkin, the gnomes, lots of other things that I had watercolored. And I told you I wasn't thrilled with the way these came out. I'm still not 100% thrilled, but I like them much better once they're die cut. I think they're really pretty now that they're die cut. I don't know, they just sort of popped to life. But what I wanted to try was watercolor paper, because truly that's what you should do if you're watercoloring. Basic white Stampin' Up! Paper really is not meant for watercoloring. You can do it, but it reacts very differently when you have pigment on any kind of a paintbrush. So I thought, let's stamp on the watercolor paper and let's give this a try. One thing to note, when you're doing watercoloring, you need to use StazOn. This ink will not bleed when you use water. That is different from Memento that you use when you're using Stampin' Blends. So I'm going to set that over here so we don't get confused and we don't think about that anymore. We're just going to think about StazOn. Now there is a StazOn cleaner to use because it does, sorry, I just heard the garage door. It does stain your stamps, so you can see that they have a bit of a black tint, and that's okay with me. It doesn't affect anything else. But just so you know that you can use StazOn cleaner on your red rubber stamps after you stamp them. Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome. So glad that you're here. All right, so I'll give you some tips. We're going to watercolor this on the watercolor paper, and I will show you. Do you think I maybe used a little too much water? Yes. But you know what? It's trial and error. And that's why I always stamp multiples, because I use one as a learning curve, and then I'll go back and I'll paint or watercolor another one after I've kind of learned my tips from doing the first one. But, you know, that's life, right? We all learn, and we should be learning, right? We should always be testing things out and learning. So let's look at this one, and let's color just, I'll do one or two apples and a couple of leaves just to show you my tips on this. I have a little mug of water here. I have my paper towel and my water painter. Now, I don't even have water in here. You can put it in there. You don't have to have it in there. I just use this as a paintbrush. If you have a paintbrush, you can use that paintbrush. It doesn't have to be this, but this is what I use because it's at my desk. I have all my re-inkers up here that I used. And what I decided to do for this particular project, this is just tape. See how I've just got a piece of tape up here that I've taped onto my clear block, and I just wrote with a Sharpie, poppy, red, daffodil, mango, papaya. So those are the colors that are up here. And then down here, I've got suede and crumb cake, granny apple green, pear pizzazz, and old olive. I did that because I was coloring these a few days ago, and when you come back to this, which, you know, you can keep using this, they don't dry out. Well, they might, I don't know, over months or years, they'll probably evaporate, but they won't dry out within a week or a few days. And so I wanted to be able to keep using them, but I didn't want to get confused and think, uh-oh, you know, which color was which. And so that was my tip, was to just, see, it's just a piece of, see, it's just tape that I just taped right on there and wrote. So that's just a little tip for you. Oh, thank you, Anne. I'm glad you liked that tip. Thank you. Thank you. It just sort of came to me. I also thought, well, you could take a piece of cardstock and you could write the same thing, and then you could put it under, see, like that, and then you would see through there. So that's another idea as well. Alrighty, so let's do some coloring. When you watercolor, you want to get your area wet first if you want your colors to kind of bleed. And if you remember those beautiful butterfly cards that we did, was that last week? Why does that feel like it was like, oh, I didn't do it live. I posted the video last week on my blog. It wasn't a live though, but yeah, that was last week. I used water to do a wash on top of the butterflies, and then I added the re-inker, and it just bleeds, and it's really a beautiful look. So if you want it to kind of bleed and blend, and you want your colors to be kind of softer, I guess is a good word, you want to get that area wet. I started with some Poppy Parade ink. So I'm just getting my brush wet and dabbing it in there. And so look, when we set down that color, do you see how that just kind of bleeds? And I'm just doing it really lightly. You don't need a heavy hand with this. So I'm laying down a little bit of Poppy Parade. I'm going to rinse that off. And I am going to grab, let's see, I'm actually going to mix a tiny bit of daffodil and mango, because you can mix, you can do whatever you want. This is your deal, right? And I'm going to dab a little bit of yellow. And this is going to be kind of a highlight for the apple. Instead of leaving white, I'm going to give it a little bit of lighter color. And you know, apples, when you go look in the market, oh my goodness, aren't there just an infinite variety of colors, right? You can just, and even in one apple, it's not necessarily one color, right? Now I am adding real red. And boy, I'm trying not to add a lot of water so that it bleeds, but it's hard. I have kind of a heavy hand, I guess, when it comes to water. So that way you have multiple reds, oranges, yellows. It's not just one flat color. You have a little bit of a highlight, and you can tell that it's a red apple, right? I know, Jennifer. She said, every time I see that watercoloring bleed, it's like magic. I know, it is. It's like magic. It's a surprise. It never turns out the same twice. I suppose you could really, really try, but it really doesn't, right? It's different almost every time. So that's how I did the apples. And now let's look at the green leaves. I'll give you a couple of tips for that. So what you do not want to do would be right away to color either of those leaves, because they are next to the wet red apple and it'll just all bleed together. So you pick a leaf that's farther away and it's not touching anything. And we're, oops, that's way too much water. I'm going to soak some of that up. Let's do that. And we're just going to wet those two leaves. I am going to grab some Granny Apple Green. And look, I am so glad that I wrote this, because I almost thought that was green, and that's soft suede. And that would have been a really ugly brown leaf, right? So now I'm just going to dab with my granny apple green down towards the base of the leaf, and I'm letting that color just sort of seep out towards the tip. Okay, it's coming out towards the tip. Now I want to add some darker green right there at the base, right on top of it. So I am going to get some Old Olive on my brush and just dab, and I want this to bleed right into my lighter green. I want to give some dimension to the leaf, but I don't want there to be any harsh line of dark green, light green. Let me hold it up. Can you see how they just sort of bled right together? That's what I want. So you have to keep layering as it's wet. Now, if I wanted to really, really darken, really dark in there, kind of like, see this leaf back here? I wanted it really dark because I wanted it to look like it was way behind and in the shadows. Same thing with that one and that one and that one. So I waited until the paper dried, and then I dipped my brush into the Old Olive and I did another layer of color. So that's how you can get it to be really dark. Do you see the difference there between the light and the dark? To me, that's what makes an image really kind of pop. Then the last thing I did with most of my leaves, I didn't do it to every single one, but most, was I got some daffodil mixed with just a little touch of mango, but mostly daffodil. And I just barely touched right out here at the tip, just a tiny bit, rinsed off that pigment, and then kind of encouraged that to bleed together a little bit, maybe just a tiny bit more of the green. But that really, to me, helps make the leaf look a little more realistic. Because if you go out in your garden or to the park or whatever, and you look at leaves, very rarely are they all just one completely solid color. They usually have some variation, maybe a tiny bit of brown towards the tip, or not the tip, but the base, where the stem is attaching, and maybe a little bit of yellow if it's starting into fall or whatever. So on some of them, I like to add the touch of yellow. The other thing it does is it picks up this yellow that I put in that apple. So that's my thought process there on bringing in more than one color and why I did that. Now, true confessions, I am not a watercolor artist. Yes, my dad was. He was amazing. He was a master. I wish I would have spent a little more time understanding watercolors with him, and I didn't. But I try to sort of think of how the colors might react, how much water, where to put highlights, where to make some dark shadows. I do try to do that at least. And so that's why I do more than just like solid red and solid green. And you could do that, but they just won't look as three-dimensional or as lifelike as adding extra colors and lights and darks. And it's absolutely the same when you're using Stampin' Blends. You've heard me, I have, I don't know what, 30 Stampin' Blends video tutorials on my YouTube channel. On every one of them, I will tell you that you want to use more than just the light and dark. So for instance, you want to use like a red or a pink. I've got four different colors, not just light and dark. You want to have lights and darks next to each other to give you that depth and dimension. So anyway, sorry, that is probably just way more than you just care to know. But I just wanted to give you just some tips about how I did that, why I kind of have the highlights, why there's a little touch of yellow, lights and darks. So there you go. That's, oh, and I did want to talk about this real quick, but that's kind of your miniature watercoloring lesson there, your quickie watercoloring lesson. Let's see. Jennifer says, do you have advice as to how much ink is the right amount so that the color doesn't run all over? Okay, so first of all, a small amount of water. I tried just to do hardly any water, and look, they've already bled outside the lines. And I am not an outside the line person. I am an inside the line person, so it bothers me. And it shouldn't, because watercolor is supposed to be loose and fluid and all that, but maybe that's why I never really could grasp an entire watercolor painting. I can't do it. I am not that loose. I am more detailed. Anyway, that's not what you're asking. The short answer is little bits of water. And did you see how I was just like barely, like that's all the color I got on there. Just teeny tiny bit. And so you just want to play and you want to see how the colors and the water and the amount of color and water reacts. And you just have to play and you just have to do it. But I would suggest stamping a whole sheet of all different kinds of images and just sort of practice with that. Yeah, trial and error. Exactly, Jennifer. Oh, Patricia, you're so sweet. She says, to us, you are a watercolor master. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I don't know. I hope that the tips help. Let's see. Oh, thank you, Marcy. Thanks, Holly. Thank you, Darcy. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everybody. You're so sweet. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody. I don't know. You can take it or leave it. All my tips, right? Anyway, let me grab this other image, and I want to give you a tip for the inside of this apple. Let me get this brush really cleaned off, though, because I don't want any green or... Let me just make sure there's... Yeah, we're clean. Okay. So the inside of the apple is not necessarily all white. I mean, some apples I've noticed, you know, when you cut into them, they are really beautiful. They're really crisp, but there's some tinge of color to them, right? There really is. So what I did was I took, I think it was suede, soft suede, and I'm kind of drying off my brush there, and I colored the apple seed in the center, and then with just a little more water and a little bit of the crumb cake. Oh, this might be too dark. That's all right. I added just a little color around the edge, and you'll notice I did add water to that whole inside of the apple. So now we've gone from white to just barely a hint of color. And then, you know what, my papaya, oh, I'll tell you that story in a second. Where's my papaya? Here it is. I need to do another drop. Okay. Then I added papaya. And I'm trying to just really water this down. And can you see over here on my block, I'm actually like pulling that color down here and watering it down. So I'm not dipping into the full color. I've got it watered down here. And I'm just going to like drop a tiny bit of color, and it's almost too much pigment. So I'm just going to add some water here so that it will kind of float and fill in. And as that dries, it's going to lighten a bit, and it's going to give you that illusion that, yes, it's a white apple inside, but it's got a little bit of color. And you can always take your paper towel and dab it, and it'll like stop all of that bleeding of color. But that, I did want to give you that tip about the inside of the apple, since it's not just straight white, at least for me, in my world. So that was that. So any questions on that before we move on to the fresh cut flowers? A sad face in the apple? Oh. I guess, oh, I see what you see. Yeah, I see it. That's funny. That's so funny. Let's see. Cindy says, have you tried stamp and use embossing powder before watercoloring? I have tried that, and I do not get a great image on watercolor paper trying to emboss, so I just prefer the StazOn. I did videos years ago. One of the very first videos I did, like, I don't know, 2008, 2009, and I embossed floral images. And then I watercolored them. And then it does keep the color inside that area. So you can do that. But I just don't have that great of luck with watercolor paper and embossing. Oh, you're so sweet, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you'll jump in and try it. I am glad. So anyway, the funny story about why my papaya was missing. Yesterday, I decided to start cleaning up this desk. And by the way, I have a video for you that I started filming. And I am going to redo my desk this weekend because it's out of control. And I had this ready to go for today's live. And I accidentally set a card right on top of this. I couldn't believe I did it. And of course it soaked up a bunch of color on the back. And I was like, really? Really? Oh man, I was so upset with myself. So I'm going to set this far, far, far away, way over here, way behind the camera, way over on the edge of my table so that nothing gets inside of it, gets on it. Anyway, so those are the apple cards. Okay. And please remember, if you missed the beginning, these 3 apples were stamped and colored on basic white Stampin' Up! Cardstock. These are stamped and colored on watercolor paper. And so there is a difference in the way that the water and the pigment reacts and how it blends and bleeds and the outcome. So just please remember that and decide what you're going to try, or try both. You know, go ahead and try both. You can certainly do that. So next we're going to talk about the fresh cut flowers, and oh my goodness, I need to speed up a little bit. Hi Mel, I was talking about your paper samplers at the beginning, and I have linked to them in a previous post this morning. So thank you for offering those. Oh yeah, too many projects going on. Exactly. Oh, that's funny. Hi Christine, we're just on the last part, so you'll have to watch the replay if you're just joining. Yes, good. I'm glad that was helpful, Cindy. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. You're so sweet. So let's talk about these. And I colored this one with the blending brushes. And I colored this one with Stampin' Blends, because I wanted to show you kind of the difference of how you might go about coloring this stamp set. So this is the Fresh Cut Flowers stamp set and the Fresh Cut Stems matching dies. And I did want to point out, so this one die cuts the large one, this one die cuts this one die cuts that, and that one die cuts that. So you have a die for every single stamp image in the set, and then you have extra pieces so that you can die cut some extra leaves, flowers, stems, and this kind of like a baby's breath sort of a sprig. And then you have this really interesting border. So lots of pieces. And if you missed the beginning, we're talking about the 6 bundles in the Stampin' Up! Perfect Partners promotion. Now, I should mention, if I didn't already, this is for September. So don't delay. Don't think, oh, well, the apples, yeah, maybe I'll get that in October or November. This is for September. So don't delay if you are thinking about getting those. There's also the adorable Yeti, and this is really cute. I do want to point out one quick thing before we make that fresh cut flower. This die, you are probably going to think, what in the world is this? Why does it only have one little line that cuts? What does this do? So I want to show you what this does. After you stamp the Yeti, you can lay this on top. And all it does is die cut right at the top. I'm going to flip it over and show you. See, that's the only spot. It die cuts a slit in his arm so that if you want to tuck some presents in there, or if he's carrying a little Christmas tree or anything else, that's where you'd slip it in. And I thought that was a really clever, a clever thing, a clever idea from Stampin' Up. And I thought that was really fun. And these mountains, I have seen people using these as candy corn, as snow cones, as ice cream sundaes. So think outside the box, and you might even think of something that you never thought to do with the Yeti. So I did want to show you that. I have not stamped with it yet, but I wanted to show you that. All right, back to fresh cut stems. I always like to get these put away because I don't know about you, but if you end up with straggly dies and stragglers on your desk and you spend too much time trying to figure out where they go, that's just a waste of time. So we don't want to do that. Right, so let's color and make this card. Oops, I haven't been looking at comments. Let's see. Oh my goodness, 4:42 a.m. in Australia. You're up way too early. Alrighty, so let's look at some tips for creating. I have a pool party base card top fold. Oh, look at that. I already die cut that for you. I have a layer 4 by 5 1/4 of white, and then I also have this that we're going to color and die cut. But I wanted to give you tips on using the mask. Can you see the mask in the background there? Doesn't it give just a beautiful, just a really soft look in the background? So I wanted to do that first and show you what I did. So I take my cardstock, lay it on top of my mask. Hang on, I'm looking for the end of my washi tape. I tell you, does this just take way too long? Let me grab my other washi tape over here. I can't find the end. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to I had to look and see, is this the mask I use? Yes, it is. Okay. So I'm going to tape it to the back, turn it over, and now it's not going to move around on me. And then I used Pool Party ink and my brush for Pool Party. And I'm going to ink that up really well. And people always ask, don't you just wash them and use them for other colors? I do not. A couple of reasons. I don't want to wait for them to dry. That's kind of the main reason. But also, these brushes actually work better the more and more and more you ink them and use them. The more ink that's built up in there, the smoother and the more even your color is going to be. So I always dab or swirl on my ink pad. I tap it off just in case there was some, blob of color. And I'm randomly putting some color, starting in the middle, working towards the edges. So yes, I do have a brush for every Stampin' Up! Color, and you don't have to. I started out with just, I think maybe 6 or 9 brushes, and I had one for blues, one for greens, one for reds, one for yellows, like that. You can totally do that if you want to, but I just kind of eventually graduated up to having a brush for every color. So I will wipe this off with a baby wipe. I'm going to set that aside so that I don't get it on anything. And then with your washi tape on the back, you just peel it off. And right there, do you see how it pulled a little of the paper? But it's okay, because that was the back. So it's all right. And there's my soft background. I think that turned out very pretty. Hi, Diana. Welcome. Hi, Cheryl. Oh, thank you, Holly. I'm glad you like the background. So there's our background. That's ready to go. Set it aside and let's color on the stamped image. And since I am using some blends, I'm going to use my Parakeet Party blends, and I'll tell you why. I did stamp this in Memento because I knew I was going to be using blends a little bit, but for the most part, I'm using the blending brushes and ink, which you could use any black pad for that. I'll show you my color combo. So I've got some mango, poppy, and Flirty Flamingo, and then Parakeet Party for the leaves. So let's start with some Flirty Flamingo, and I kind of envisioned California poppies because we have them all over here in California, and I'm doing super, super, super lightly, starting in the middle and just sort of gradually making my circle bigger to get some color on the flowers. Okay. Oh, that's pretty just as is. My goodness, we wouldn't even have to shade this. That would just make a gorgeous, very subtle card, wouldn't it? That's very, very pretty. I like that. But I'm going to show you how I shaded it. So we'll add a little more color. And for those of you that know me, you know these are called Patty colors. This is my go-to color palette, right? Poppy Parade, my favorite Stampin' Up color. And this one's really dark. Do you see that? Do you see how dark that's on my scratch paper? So I'm just going to barely put some of that in the center. A little bit of a larger circle. So do you see what it basically did was it just darkened the center. That's all it did. I don't want to make a super dark flower all over. I just sort of want to make the center of that flower a little bit darker. So there we go. Now we have two shades on there. Poppy Parade and Flirty Flamingo. And then our third Patty color, Mango Melody. And you wouldn't have to add the mango. I just sort of liked that pop of the yellow. So on the edge, I'm just going to lightly, just lightly, just a little bit, because our poppies here, especially when they catch like the evening sun, when my husband and I go on our walks, they really have that glow of that yellowish orange right around the edge, especially if the light is behind. So that's it. That's all I did for those. Really simple. And then let me show you what I did with the leaves. I took the die and I wanted to see where is it going to cut out exactly? What is it going to cut? And what I noticed was down here, it really cuts nicely right around the edge of those leaves and up here as well. But in here, there's a lot of space that if I took my blending brush and I just did this on the leaves, all of that white in between would be green. So I decided I'm going to do a hybrid kind of. So I used the Parakeet Party ink pad and brush to do this. And I didn't care that it was outside the line. Did you just hear me say that? I didn't care it was outside the line. Oh my gosh, I never say that. Because I knew that the die was going to cut that out. And so I was okay with it. But for these leaves, I did not want that green all over in here. And so I went to my blends. And so it's sort of a hybrid card, right? I just decided, well, we're just going to use the marker for a little bit more controlled coloring. And also right up here where I'm coloring right now, I knew that there was no way I could do my brush and get it controlled right in that spot without getting it all over that flower. So I thought, uh-oh, I better go to my blends, have a little more control. So I started with the light Parakeet Party, and I'm just doing a little bit of shading with the dark, just a little. This isn't a masterpiece. It's just simply getting a little color on there. And I'm going to just kind of lightly, I'm just trying to just give a tiny bit of green on that little stem. And then I think I went to Poppy Parade, I think. It doesn't really matter, but I just wanted these little flower buds up here to have some color. So this is light Poppy Parade, just giving a little bit of color right there. And that's it. And then we will die cut this. So feel free to talk amongst yourselves as I turn around and die cut this at my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I'm just going to line this up. I think that's lined up. I use a little Post-it flag because I always line my dies up over here on my stamping desk first, and then I turn around and die cut them. So as I move over there, I don't want it to shift. So I always use a little Post-it flag to hold it down. So please talk amongst yourselves while I die cut this real quick. Oh, thank you, Colleen. I'm glad. Oh, thank you, Mary. I'm glad that you enjoyed the color combo and the tip. So here we go. We'll just peel that Post-it flag off, and then look at our beautiful magic. Look how fun that turned out. Because of that die, I was able to get all that detail cut. I never could have done that with my paper snips. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love, love, love to fussy cut, but that in there, that'd be a little much, even for me. So let's assemble this card. And then I'm going to double check for questions. So hang real tight just for a minute. If you had a question, I will hopefully get to that. Now, I know if you've followed me a while, you know I love to use the foam adhesive sheets, and normally I would, but this was a lot of smaller areas, and so I just decided a dimensional under each of these larger areas was probably sufficient. And I do really prefer the foam sheet for a little bit more solid of coverage of the foam, but it's fine. This worked absolutely fine. And I always love to use this old pokey tool because it saves your fingernails and it's less frustrating than trying to pick them off. Now, when I put this on, I really had to think because everything inside of me was screaming, put it right in the middle, right in the middle, right in the middle. And I was brave and I tilted it over like this. I said, okay, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to offset it. So I did. I stuck it there. And then I used the Charming Sentiments. Each one of these great stamps has a die. They are fabulous. This is like a must have. That's a must. And I did the thank you. I also did that in Pool Party. What did I do with the dimensionals? Were they not just right there? Honestly, does that happen to you? Can things just walk away in a split second? Honestly. All right. So then I just put that down here. And then I thought these were really pretty. They're called Sequins and Gems. And I thought that this color was the perfect complement on this card to bring out that blue instead of accentuating any of the poppy color. I mean, you could, or you could maybe just do just pearls or plain rhinestones. Any of those would probably look great. But that's what I decided to do, was these adhesive back sequins and gems. And I think they're just gorgeous. I love those. I haven't used these yet. You can tell I haven't used these. They're kind of big. And they're a really different shape. And I don't know what to use those for. Something. I don't know what. I just don't know what to use them for. But anyway, let me just scroll back real quickly and see. I don't see any other questions, but that's how I did this card. And then on this one, let me show you this large image that we just did with the blending brushes. I colored it with my Stampin' Blends. So I used the Sweet Sorbet, Poppy Parade, Flirty Flamingo, Orchid Oasis, and Starry Sky, along with the Parakeet Party. But I also colored 2 of this image and used that die that cuts it out, and I tucked one back here and one back here, and I thought that really made, I don't know, just that's quite a difference. Look at the difference between just the one image and then adding those 2 sprigs. Isn't that cool? I thought that turned out really neat. And I used a different mask. This is the Artistic Mix. It's in the annual catalog. I used this one in the background with my Flirty Flamingo ink, just for a little bit, like a lattice. It looks sort of like a lattice in a garden. Woo, we did it. Oh my gosh, an hour. Is this just like the fastest hour of your week? It is for me. Let's see. Margit says, why do you use a Post-it versus washi tape? So do you mean like this little Post-it flag? I'll tell you why. This is so funny. So about 3-ish years ago, when we still, before COVID, when we were having in-person events, we were having a team event for my downline, and one of my team members from the Love to Stamp group brought hundreds of these in a box. And she said, my company is throwing these away. Does anybody want these? I was like, oh my gosh, yes. And I let everybody else pick first. And then there were, I don't know, several dozen packages left. And I took them because I use these all the time for that purpose. I love these. So yes, that's why I use those flags. That's my funny story on that. Oh, Anne, she's so sweet. She said it's the best hour of her week. Oh, I just love you. That is so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thanks, Nell. She said she likes that offset. Thank you. So this would be a great time if you have a question about any of the cards that we talked about today. So we have our fresh cut flowers. We had our apple blossom, and we had our piggies. If you have questions about any of these, about the process, about any of the tips that I shared with you today, this is a great time to ask, because I will happily answer your question. And look for these starting tomorrow. So that would be Saturday, September 3rd, pattystamps.com. I think I have 2 posts for the piggies, and then a post for the apples, and then a post for the flowers. So those are spread out over the next 3 days, and you'll find all of the supplies to purchase these products linked in each of those blog posts. I do really appreciate you supporting my business by purchasing from me if you don't have another demonstrator. So I do say thank you for that. And I thank you for watching and sharing and liking and commenting and all those good things. Oh, what did I get from the office? These. I forget. Somebody was asking, why do I use, Margit asked, why do I use the Post-it flags instead of washi tape? And that was my story about that. Thank you, Sarah. This is true, Lisa. They are also not as sticky as washi tape usually. So that is another great reason. Yes. Flowers do not lean over. Oh, so I shouldn't have done that? Well, I did it. It's too late, Dawn. Sorry. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Linda. Oh, Sharon, I'm glad that you enjoyed the watercoloring tips. I am so glad. That makes me happy. It's all a learning process. It's a lot of practice. So it's not something that most people just can do on the first try. It takes a lot of practice. So any questions? I don't see anybody asking questions. I'll let you go if you don't have questions. But thank you for joining me. I have some fun cards ready for you for next week already. I was worked way ahead of time. I got lots of things done ahead. So I've got some really cute cards for next week as well. All right. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everyone. The Piggy cards? Yeah. I talked about these with lots of details, so if you want to watch the replay for more details, you are welcome to. But here are the Piggy cards that I showed. All right, well, thank you. Yes, have an amazing weekend, everyone. I hope that you have a great weekend planned. And for me, I will be tearing out my whole desk here, everything on top of it, and redoing. It's just out of control. You won't even believe the before pictures. You'll probably gasp when you see the video of the before and after. But anyway, yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I appreciate, oh, Heather said, do you prefer the watercolor paper or the white? For watercoloring, I prefer the watercolor paper, definitely. Thank you, Lisa. I'm looking forward to next week as well. I will see you all in a week. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.